it really is at the key of what we believe, that branding and a notion of branded space is fundamentally experiential to the people who work at it. And an environment should not tell you where you work, it should tell you why you work. And it's our goal to, as much as possible, make that communication clear to people. So we're going to talk a little about 99 Brandon, which is exactly 1 mile away from here I walked. It is a new building that we opened up 1 block away from our headquarters at 888 Brandon. It's a building that is incredibly unique and really, not just like unlike any building I've seen in San Francisco, it's unlike any building I've seen in the world. It is completely wrapped in glass block. It is sort of the apex of like 1984 glass block technology. And it's shaped in this really unique way by the freeways and roads around it, right? So it's this kind of chamfered triangular building. It's the kind of space that San Francisco would never let get built anymore, right? The city has become incredibly conservative architecturally. And so it was really exciting to pick up a space that had this unique of an expression. But truthfully, it was misunderstood, and people kind of hated it. People have this allergy to glass block or something, like bad shower experiences or something. So, but we saw this amazing potential in this building, and the first way that we came to understand it was by cutting a section through it and really looking at what happens when you enter the space. What we saw was that there was this really deep overhang. So you kind of had this like mysterious dark threshold that you went through. It was almost hard to see the front door. And then this really weird thing happens where you descend into the building. Like you walk through the front door and you immediately start going down a ramp into the guts of the building, which is a very unusual experience. From there, you have this moment of rest in the light well. You peek at something through this doorway. You come into this large atrium space, and then finally you resolve throughout the building in the workplace. And embedded in sort of the fundamental structure of this building, we saw this narrative, that it looked a lot like a typical plot structure, where you have an arc as you're moving from the front door to the space that you work. And so we said, OK, how can we take this kind of nascent narrative potential in this space and turn it into an explicit architectural experience? So we start at the front door. So this is the corridor. This is how we found it. Not really a narrative experience yet, but we thought we could do it. So the way we approached it was we'll take both sides of the corridor and we'll stack listing rooms. Listing rooms are an in-house lingo for the meeting rooms. We call them listing rooms because they're based on Airbnb listings. And so this is the office at 888. And here the listing rooms are expressed in this pretty massive interior facade, but kind of two-dimensionally. It's a bit of a full-scale diorama that you perceive as you walk into that atrium space. And so we thought, how can we make these listing rooms into something more meaningful? And I actually looked back to the app, and I thought, OK, what is the app experience? Basically, you scroll. And how can I put your body in there so it's actually your body that's scrolling through the product that's available on Airbnb? How can I take a digital experience, for lack of a better word, and turn it into a physical one? And so we translated this into this. And so now, as you go into this space, you're kind of descending into the building with these double-stacked listing rooms beside you, seeing the variety of potential on Airbnb as you move into the core of the building. It has this really nice effect where you're getting this little peek into different places all over the world. You see all the different action in the office happening as you move down that space. And then what's cool is that when you're in those meetings, you have this almost like street side effect where you're seeing people walking down that ramp. Every single person who comes in that building walks down that ramp. And so you're seeing people moving by as you're having your meeting. And also, you're able to look across at the other meetings happening. So this gives you a sense of what those environments are like. So at the end of that corridor, there's this arched opening that we made. And so that threshold felt like something that needed to be controlled. We actually shut down that threshold and made it tighter, and then created this kind of moment of rest in that atrium space. What we wanted to do is we wanted to take the core of the building, which is that light well, staircase, and an elevator, and turn it into a thing, this thing in the middle of the building. We call it the castle, this castle that you walk through every day. And so to do that, we had to really make this kind of, I was going to say immersive, but maybe submersive experience here, where you're in this intense blue environment that is a little bit isolating, a little bit disorienting, in between these two really stimulating things, the listing row and then the atrium to follow. When you come to the end of that blue space, you get a little peek through a second archway of the atrium to come. Again, this idea of moving through these portals was really important to us. We wanted it to feel like you were having a kind of dramatic transition as you move through the space. You don't just sort of casually walk from one space to another. You notice that something is changing and something is happening to you. And then you come into this atrium. So this atrium is unusual. It's like, it's atypical in that it moves inward as it goes up, right? The negative space kind of makes a layer cake. This is how it looked when we got it. Kind of a really strong 80s mall vibe. The columns are wrapped in black plastic. The floor plates are reed super strong, so in a weird way, you couldn't even perceive the atrium because all you were really seeing were these stacked floor plates, again, very mall-like. And so we thought, okay, how can we skin the face of this and turn it into, again, an object? How do we make it into a castle? And we looked at wood slat as an option. So that space went from this. Everyone loves a demo shot. It went to this, take it all out, to this. And we wrapped that center in these wood slats that kind of filter light, filter the movement beyond, and really give the center of the building an identity. The reason this was important, aside from just sort of the architectural reasons of being able to perceive the verticality of the space, the other reason it was important is that in a triangular building is very confusing to move around. We, in the West, have lived our entire lives in rectangles. And the second you put somebody in a chamfered triangle with no right angles, they're instantly lost. And so the castle is viewable from anywhere in the office. So you always know where the center of the building is. You can always move back to the staircase, to the elevator, to that vertical circulation. You can see a peek of it here, but the other thing we saw is that aside from being phenomenally dark for an atrium, there was also a lack of visible connection between the floors. So you kind of walked in, but it was unclear how you would get up and down in this building. And so we added this staircase. And so this big white sweeping staircase that really draws you up into the building communicates to the user that you're supposed to use the whole building. Please don't stay on your floor. Please explore this space. It's relatively effortless to move up this ramp. And the combination of the ramp, adding all this white sheetrock, getting rid of the glass beyond, all of this suddenly really started to illuminate the space, and you saw this reflected light bouncing all over the place, and you get a real feeling of a kind of indoor plaza in this space that I think it really needed, and people really need. People really need a connection to daylight and a sense of the day passing. And so here you can see how these new white elements move in and out of this castle object. So when we looked at the floors, so it's a four-story building, when we looked at the floors, we thought, okay, how do we theme these floors in a way that has a nice brand identity that people can lock into, is stimulating, and works as a wayfinding function as well. To me, one of the greatest failures of corporate office spaces is when you get off on the wrong floor and you don't realize it for 5 minutes until someone lets you know that you're on 6, not 5. So we wanted to make sure that there was an identity that you could recognize as you move through the space. And so we looked at Airbnb Trips, which is an expansion of the platform beyond homes into experiences, hosted experiences all over the world. So we start with Buenos Aires, and basically this is a sort of a material palette exercise, right? Choosing materials that represent that city, that give you a sense of the character of that place, and that really feel distinct from each other. So Buenos Aires, Kyoto, Jaipur, and Amsterdam. I'm going to talk a little bit about Amsterdam. So this gives you a sense of the plan, again, this kind of odd shape of the building. And you can see how we're relating the neighborhoods in Amsterdam to the neighborhoods on the floor. So the idea here is that by moving these neighborhoods away from the center, you create this natural hub. So the center of the building functions as this primary circulation hub that people always move back to. And then if they want to go to their workspace, they peel off from that hub and they connect into their neighborhood. The power of this is that you don't get building-wide traffic ever moving past your desk, right? If you want to go to your desk, you're peeling off of this main path, and so are other people. So there's no distraction from the circulation in the building. This by far has been the most success. I mean, even though this building's groovy, has a lot of cool-looking things, the true success of this building is actually this plan and this ability to protect people's workspace from the traffic of the building. And again, you can see the density, right? Very highly dense workspaces that are very quiet and feel very private from each other. So when you work here and you want to go there, you don't do this, you don't meander through other people's neighborhoods, you move back to that hub and connect to that other neighborhood. For those of you who are true Disney fanatics, you may have noticed that this plan is very similar to the plan of Disneyland. This is a fluke, I think. I mean, I wasn't there at the inception of the building, but it is kind of amazing that it's the similar shape, but it's also the same logic as Disneyland. So Disneyland has this Main Street USA, which is this primary access point. It connects you to that plaza where there's that 1.5 scale Walt Disney holding Mickey's hand in gold or something. And then from there, you peel off into the different lands. And what's really powerful about that is that you don't, again, I mean, much like The Office, you don't have to migrate through all the other territories to go from Tomorrowland to New Orleans Square, right? You simply move back to the circle and then move back across. And it also creates a sense of isolation in each of those lands. So those places, even though Disneyland is quite small, you get a real sense of transporting to a different environment because of this hub and spoke model. I'm going to show you guys just a couple places on the 4th floor, on this Amsterdam floor. So the boardroom was based on this Stellenbosch South African listing. This is how it ended up playing out. The cafe space is based on the Bloemen Market, the tulip markets that are next to the canals in Amsterdam. And you can see how that's expressed through this kind of warehouse kind of ceiling form with these skylight panels, these polygal panels. And then finally, there's a boat. You got to have a boat. And the boat, which you guys may have noticed in the other photos, the boat actually pushes through the glass into the atrium and sort of announces itself to the whole building, hopefully inspiring circulation. You know, it's this curiosity up above you that maybe you want to go check out when you enter the building. And then it contains these little one-person spaces, which are by far the most popular spaces in the building. It turns out people love putting themselves in a little cubby. And we really can't build enough of them. But you can get a sense of how it plays against that glass and how it works in the space. So I will pause right there. Thank you.